Hey, Tommy, I want to watch the game. Give me the clicker there.
No. Hey, I'm already watching the Bruins, man. I don't want to see anything else.
Hey, well, I want to see the Red Sox.
Bruins.
Red Sox, Bruins, Red Sox. Oh, no. Ooh. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. I think you broke the TV, Tommy.
Oh, well, I guess we got to go over to Uncle Rudy's to watch it on the TV there.
Oh, no, he's watching The Masked Singer. Maybe we can go down to the bar. Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me, of course, today is my co-host, Mr. Brandon Noe. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm great, Mark. How about you?
I am doing pretty daggone good, man. Here we are in the merry month of May. It's Wednesday, May 4th, on the verge of Cinco de Mayo and a lot of other things. I mean, this is a crazy, crazy month, man. I mean, you know, it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, Frosty and everybody was wrong when they said that Christmas was the most wonderful time of the year. I think this could be the most wonderful time because, I mean, we got NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, which, I mean, you and I both know I have a thing for. I love it. And it's the beginning of summertime pretty much.
Amen. Yeah, and you know, there's all those good things going on too, because you got the Derby. The month of May means a lot to me. An old Louisvillian and horse fan. The Derby's coming up. Stranger Things, they're going to be breaking out on Netflix. So stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with baseball. But one strange thing we'll talk about later on too is the new Joe West podcast. So that'll be fun too. So a lot of crazy things going on in the merry, merry month of May. Hey, you know, one thing that just broke this morning, and you know, we were celebrating Miguel Cabrera, man, hitting 3,000 last week, and talking about other achievements that other folks might be having. But we just had one, I think, from last night, and that was from a win with the Astros. Specifically, the record that was achieved was Dusty Baker. Man, he won his 2,000th game as an MLB manager last night.
Man, to be able to coach that, being able to coach just 2,000 games in general is a long time. I can't imagine how long it takes to get to 2,000. I don't even know how many managers have actually won 2,000 over the history of baseball.
Oh, no, I can't imagine either. I mean, the whole 3,000 gig on the number of hits with Miggy was kind of crazy, you know, thinking about that one. And there's a lot of crazy things going on. It's trying to keep up with all these, whether it be watching TV, reading periodicals, looking at blogs, etc. There's so much going on out there. You know, we had the beginning of this with Tommy and Jimmy, you know, trying to keep up, and one TV in the house and fighting for the clicker to watch something. And, you know, it's hard to keep up with all this good stuff. I've been trying to find a way to enjoy the games. And last weekend, some friends said, "Hey, Mark, can you get us some wings from Popeyes? Let's go get together and have a little party and play some games." I said, "That sounds good. Go watch the Rays." Well, that didn't work out so well, but I couldn't get anything at Popeyes. So we had to look at some sports bars around town. There's, you know, a few that carry wings. And as I went down to in Lakeland, I saw three places that if you want to watch a game, they're probably within like a half mile or maybe even less. And that is, let's see, you had the traditional Hooters, where I definitely got the wings. But then you also have you've got the Buffalo Wild Wings, and one that I had just recently discovered, and that was Walk-On's Bistro. And Walk-On's Bistro is Bistreaux. And the Walk-Ons in relation to sports means, of course, that people who come and who aren't necessarily solicited or get a scholarship, but who walk on to a team. So that was pretty cool. And I'll give you a little bit more about that in a minute. But it was quite the experience. I stopped in there yesterday to Walk-On Bistro in Lakeland, and I was just curious to see how many TVs they might have in there. I'd popped in Hooters to get a to-go order a few days ago, and I said, "Man, this is unbelievable." So I started my little, if you will, wing walk, but actually Bistro has a lot more than wings. And how many TVs you think they have in a place like that for sports fans? Because it is a sports bar / restaurant.
Oh, man. I mean, as big as some of those places are, I'd say easily 30 to 40.
30 to 40. Yeah, you'd think that. And I thought, well, that's probably a decent average too. Yeah. So I started counting a little bit, and I said, oh, they got 20 or 30. And then the assistant manager came and said, what are you doing? Well, I said, I'm counting your TVs. And she says, she said, what are you planning to come in here late at night and takes? No. Just trying to do this for a story. And she says, we have 80 TVs. I said, what? 80 TVs to watch the games. That she's got we'll go into this later, like I said, on another episode, just about how involved all that is. But Brandon, you walk in there and there's a bank of 8 TVs right above the bar. And they've got that. The bar is 4-sided. So wherever you walk right there's 32, there's 32 TVs just there. So you're not even talking about where people normally sit, and everywhere else. It's just amazing. They even got spaces outside. But wow, if you want to watch a game, you don't have to worry about it with Jimmy and Tommy. We'll just send them down to one of those type of places, one of those bars / restaurants / wing joint.
I haven't been to a sports bar in a really long time, but I always enjoyed going there, during college football, because you could watch pretty much every game in one room. And some of them are so crazy where I don't remember exactly what place it was. They had little TVs in the bathrooms. Like right over the urinals, there was a little TV. So you don't miss anything.
Wow.
I feel bad for the guy that has to fix that TV, but
well, what happens if you're standing there at a very decisive moment of a game and they're getting ready to show you the replay? How long do you continue to stand there, especially if there's a long line behind you? But because that could be a little weird. Maybe you're watching a different game than the guy in the stall next to you, and he's leaning over to watch the game that you have on your screen. That could be a little bit on the scary side, but
you forget where you are for a couple of seconds.
But it's amazing how much you can be immersed in watching the games, especially in some of these restaurants and bars that cater to a sports audience. I always wonder too how much time somebody may actually spend in one of those if they want to watch an entire game. I mean, you're talking 3 hours with many games, so that's a good amount of time to be drinking a lot of beverages and eating a lot of food.
I mean, I'm sure there are people that like spend all day there, especially during college football, because those games easily last closer to 4 hours at some points. So I'm sure they easily there's got to be at least a few people at every sports bar that spend all day there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess you could I probably want to take stock in the place after that. I don't know.
That could be a good idea, actually.
There you are, my friend. Well, we may have to explore that in a future episode. But the thing of it is, I go back, look back to, and there was a little place in Shavley where I grew up, Duffy's Bar, and you go in there. I think maybe they had one TV. Of course, we're talking, last millennia, and some would say deep into last millennia. But the thing of it was, it's changed so much. As far as being immersed in sports, being immersed with screens everywhere, it's still hard to keep up.
Yeah, I remember going to Beef O'Brady's. I think it was still more local at the time, and they only had like 10 TVs. And like I say only, but it was a little bit of a smaller place, and they had all those TVs in there, and I thought it was cool. I just like going there to eat the cheese sticks and stuff. Ooh. And you could watch like a baseball game or a football game. So that was always cool. And now you go into places where they have these massive TVs or almost like jumbotrons, and you could just stay there all day, and it's an HD.
It's crazy. I'll say it again, but I enjoyed myself, the other day, and I was, like I said, I'm looking forward to going back a little bit more. One of the things that's changed is the amount of people you can keep on a roster right now to prevent injuries and to kind of ease back into a season where we've been locked out and didn't have a full bit of spring training. There was given what they MLB gave 28 teams to the roster where it's normally 26. And so that was going to go on as of, I think, the beginning of this month, May. It has now been reduced to 26 people on the roster. One other thing that was, I guess, probably came up as far as this is probably the CBA. Anyway, there's a change as far as not just having a regular limit to 26 people on your roster, but a limit to the number of pitchers. people like the Rays, they've always had a large number of pitchers for relievers, et cetera. And we're going to try to restrict that. I think they're looking for the ability to maybe keep some of the rest of the guys, the infielders, the outfielders, that they're not getting stressed having to play every game, and have somebody in the dugout that they can put out there, and they don't have to keep bringing somebody up and down and up and down and up and down from the minors.
And that helps with the Rays too, because we've watched them. We both know that they just burn through pitchers like crazy. If they don't use like 5 pitchers a game, then I don't know what happened, but it seems like they use a ton of pitchers out of their rotation a game, and then they use them almost every day, it seems like. So they really go through those arms quick, and that's one of the reasons why they have so many pitchers.
Yeah, and right now they don't have a good full 5-man rotation. So that makes it even more so. So we're not going to get down into what their rotation may or may not be, but if you've been following the Rays and all, there's a lot of injuries on players that they thought are really good. They tried to bring Ryan Yarbrough back last night, but his performance seemed to be suffering.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, that it is one way to put it. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts teams like the Rays. And like I said, right now the Rays have probably done some of that trimming already. They're down to 14. They did get down to 13 pitchers. But I was looking at the Braves. The Atlanta Braves they have 15 pitchers, I think, right now in their 26-man rotation. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know, man. We're going to see how it impacts people over the season, but that doesn't happen as far as a reduction of pitchers until May 31st. So we'll see. Well, looking at all this, Brandon, I did want to see if it's really been making a difference as far as injuries. We're going to take a quick look at the injury report from MLB. I know, let's see, they were looking at Teoscar Hernandez, I think, with the Blue Jays, have been out for a little bit. Gurriel had been last night. We'll talk about the Blue Jays in a little bit. Let's see. Gallo from the Yankees. It looks like he had a groin injury, and he should be coming back soon. A lot of these teams have somebody like the Rays again, who's out for a year. We're looking at pitchers with Tommy John surgery that's out there. It makes a difference. Here we are. Just 4 weeks? About how many games we got thus far? Let's see.
I actually have the standings up here. It looks like most teams have played about 25 games in that ballpark.
Yeah, so here we are, 4 weeks and 25 games into the season. And, already we've got some injuries that we know that are either going to end people for the season, or some of them who've already still recuperating from last year. See if there's any other big ones coming in here.
I did see yesterday that Tyler Glasnow was throwing yesterday at the Trop, and he wasn't on the mound, but he was doing just normal warm-up tosses. So there's one little positive on the injury front.
Well, that's good to hear. I said, anyway, but there's some of this up and down, and you can't really do much about it, but we're hoping that, we're not going to see as much. But right. So you're talking about what's going on with the standings right now. So let's dig into that a bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. It's time to dig off the dust off of the rundown, I think we used to call it, but since we're a month in, we can finally have some games to work with, so they make a little bit more sense. And let's start on the AL East, since that's our home division.
Yeah.
The Yankees, they're still on their hot streak. Up to 11 straight wins now at this point? Yeah, so they're still in first place at 18-6. 3.5 back, you have the Blue Jays 15-10. 4 back, the Rays 14-10. Then you have to go a little bit back to the Red Sox, who are off to a disappointing start. They're 8 games back at 10-14, with the Orioles just behind them at 8-16, 10 games back.
Well, let's take a look at that just a second, because the AL East right now, to see the Yankees leading with 18 wins, and see, what was it, the last? Yeah, you said they've won 11 games in a row. That's amazing. Right now they're playing the other top team in the AL East, the Blue Jays. Like you said, they're 15-10. Did you see any of that game last night, man, that between the Blue Jays and the Yankees?
I didn't see it live. I just watched the condensed game this morning, but there were some takeaways from that game. Let's just call it that.
Yeah, that's probably being kind. It was interesting watching Alek Manoah. That young man is he just knocks me down with what he is able to do from that mound. The cool demeanor that he keeps during the whole time. It doesn't matter who's in front of him. He gave up one run, but outside of that, he seemed like he was keeping everything going real smooth. Another part of that game I enjoyed watching was the catcher, Mr. Alejandro Kirk, Captain Kirk, the catcher. You saw he's rather a young, stout fella, and he got a double, man. You see that man go for it. I think he hit it over in right field. They were scampering to get it, and he took full advantage of it. He gets all the way over on the second, and Kirk's up there. I can't remember if it's 2 outs or not, but Espinal's up right after him. Espinal hits a double, and Kirk goes at full speed, man. Here is this catcher, and he's going all the way up there and sliding into home, and it was a joy to watch. He'd been struggling, I think, a little bit this year at the bat, but it was great to see him pull that together last night.
I hadn't heard of him until you brought him up, but I mean, that man was chugging around third. There was nothing that was going to stop him.
No.
You could have put a brick wall just before home plate, and he would have ran through it and still scored. That's how dedicated he was to getting that run.
Exactly. And the thing of it is, unfortunately for the Blue Jays, that was the only run that they got. If Kirk hadn't done that, there wouldn't have been anything but a goose egg on the board for them. So it was just astounding to watch.
Yeah, and I think that game was a little bit closer than what the score was, and I'm not blaming that completely on the umpires, but I'll put some blame on them, and we can get into that at a later date. But I think that game was closer than I thought. I did watch the condensed game, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But I think that was a good game. I wish it was on national TV.
Yeah, I do as well. It was a great game. And one other thing I got to say about it, Brandon, it's always great to watch Vlad Jr., but there was a rundown that took place between home plate and third, and the pitcher and the third baseman are going at it back and forth. I can't remember who the player was, but they're trying to doing the old hot box. They're trying to do the hot box, and Vlad Jr. runs over. He actually tags this man. He gets the ball because the ball's being pitched back and forth, and he slaps the guy with the glove with him. He's got the ball in it, but the umpire doesn't see it. It was ugly because they didn't call the guy out. It became a run, and a critical run as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I've never heard it called a hot box. I've heard it called a rundown or a pickle, but not a hot box.
Hot box, yeah. Hot box, I think that's the game I played as a child, and it was trying to run back and forth between two bases. So it was a hot box. It was just something we did for fun, throwing the ball back and forth and trying to beat it, make sure you didn't get tagged. But he got tagged. The umps didn't see it. Charlie Montoyos, the manager for the Blue Jays, he's there. He's already used up his all his challenges. And so Charlie runs out there onto the field, and he knows he can't challenge it and have replay. He says, well, ask the other umpires. Ask them what they saw. And none of them saw anything differently, but the cameras sure did.
Yeah, that to me, I think that's just a breakdown and unacceptable that nobody caught that. I mean, I saw it live, and I didn't think that was a controversial play. I thought that the controversy came when Stanton was called safe at first.
Yeah.
I thought that was the controversy because I didn't hear about it until this morning. And I don't know. I mean, the rules are the rules, and Charlie did the most that he could, but I thought, maybe like New York or wherever the situation room is, can't they buzz in and say, hey, you guys got this wrong? It was out. Because, I mean, you could clearly see it. I saw it the first time around.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they can only come in if it's been challenged because, yeah, somebody should have said something. Anyway, but, you're getting back to what you're talking about as far as the standings. The Blue Jays right now, they're 15-10 and the Yankees 18-6. And I have great hopes for the Blue Jays. I see them, leading the AL East as the season, continues.
Yeah, I'm really not surprised at the AL East what it is right now. I'm a little surprised at Boston, their slow start, but I mean, it's the beginning of May. We still got a few weeks till Memorial Day, my sort of unofficial date of taking teams serious. But I mean, I'm really not surprised. I think at the moment it's a 3-team race for first, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Red Sox went on a run at some point.
They almost have to. I mean, right now they're only 2 games ahead of the Orioles.
Oh, yeah. At this point, 4 games is going to be tough to overcome just to get back to 500 the way they've been playing at the moment, because they're 500 at home, below 500 on the road.
Ooh.
They'd have to get hot at some point, or else this could slip away very quickly.
So what's happening out at the rest of the divisions out there?
All right, looking at the Central, the Twinkies, a bit of a surprise. They're in first place at 15-9.
Ooh.
Just behind them, the Cleveland baseball team, or the Guardians, at 10-12. They're 4 back. Another surprisingly slow start, the White Sox at 10-13. They're 4.5 back. The Royals at 8-14. They are 6 games back. And bringing up the rear, my team that I thought was going to surprise some people, the Detroit Motor City Kitties at 7-14, 6.5 back.
That is so sad. Like you, I really had high expectations for the Tigers. And, you know, looking at those same stats you're talking about, looking at the last 10 games, the Twins, they got a 9-1 record, but everybody else, you're looking at 3-7 with the Guardians, 4-6 with the Sox, 3-7 Royals, 3-7 Tigers. Good gravy, man. There's a lot of struggling going on.
Yeah, and I've paid attention to the Tigers a little bit more because they've piqued my curiosity. Let's just say they haven't played well, and it's combined with some Little League mistakes. I saw that game against the Twins believe it was last week, where they ended up throwing the ball all around the stadium to let the Twins walk it off. So stuff like that, that's not going to get you very far in this league.
No, it's going to be a tough league. I had some expectations seeing the White Sox at the top. I don't know. They might get there, but it's rough going. Twins are kind of owning it at the moment.
Yeah, the White Sox have the saving grace that the division is relatively weaker with the Royals, and it looks like the Tigers are relatively weaker at the moment. So they could, maybe string together some serious wins against those teams because, they play each other every week, it seems.
Yeah.
So they have that as their saving grace, and they're only 4.5 back. So it's not the brightest look, but I'd say it's a little bit more positive than what the Red Sox are at the moment.
Wow.
And we'll keep heading west. Unless you had anything else to say about the Central, we'll head west.
No, yeah, let's go ahead. What's happening out in the West?
The Angels, another surprise team right there. They lead that division at 15-10, a game and a half ahead of the Astros at 13-11. The Mariners at 500, 2.5 back. The A's are 4.5 back, and they've lost 2 out of 3 so far against the Rays. But don't worry, more cats saw that game live than actual people did. So there's that positive.
Oh,
and then another disappointment, the Rangers at 9-14, 5 games back.
Wow. So yeah, we just talked about the Astros and Dusty Baker getting his 2000th win. I expected a little more from the Rangers this year. Maybe I need to take a deeper look at that roster because at 9-14 really kind of surprises me.
Yeah, maybe we were a little starstruck with what they did in free agency and maybe set some unrealistic expectations. Though, I mean, we're only a month in, so I'm not hitting the panic button. But I mean, maybe that was the case, but this is a slow start. I mean, they're below the A's in the standings. And there's nobody on that team anymore that they just sold everybody off. Ooh. Even the fan base, it seems like. So I don't blame A's fans for not going to games. I wouldn't either. But at least they're not in last place.
Well, and the Angels are leading it too. One of the guys is the advisor to the GM out there, Bobby Valentine, was on with us last week. So I have to probably reach out to Bobby and say, what are you guys doing, man? Glad to see you guys leading it out there. Didn't expect it. You and Joe Madden and company. And, I'm sorry. Who are those 2 guys you got on there? Otani and what's his name? Mike Trout. Woof. Yeah. Yep. That's got to be a great team to watch.
Yeah, and they're doing this with Otani, who hasn't had the greatest start, and I think he's battled some injuries as well. So, I mean, if they get a healthy Otani and Rendon seems healthy and Trout staying healthy, knock on wood for both of them.
Here.
maybe the Angels could finally reach their potential. As I'm saying this before Memorial Day. I will hammer that point home. It's before Memorial Day, so I won't judge everybody completely.
Okay, I think we got that. All right, man. Well, let's leave
the title of the show.
That would work, wouldn't it? So what should it be again?
No judgment before Memorial Day.
No judgment. I like that. Okay, good.
You can Photoshop my face onto like a protester with a sign that says no judgment.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. Hey, we should do that. All right. So take us into that other league. What's going on at the National League, man?
Oh, yeah. The National League. The New York Mets.
Ooh.
They're hopping on the Bing Bong train. They're leading that division at 18-8.
Jeez.
They're reaching their full potential with Max Scherzer leading the way. Behind them, 4.5 games back, the Marlins, the Fighting Loose Shifts. They are at 12-11. Behind them, the Phillies at 11-13, 6 games back. The Braves 11-15, 7 games back. And the Nationals 9-16, 8.5 back.
Marlins, I love it. I absolutely positively love it. I keep waiting to see them continue to grow against Cohen's magic money with the Mets. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Mets, they're playing to their full potential, what they can be, at least on paper.
Yeah.
And the Braves, I mean, looking at their roster, I think they could easily have kept pace with the Mets. Only problem is they've fallen behind so quickly to where if they keep it up, looking at their last 10, they're 4-6, and the Mets are 7-3. The division, how long could that eventually be out of reach, and they have to become a wild card team? Even though I'm sure they'd be fine with being a wild card team because they were practically won last year.
I mean, is it a Freddie Freeman World Series hangover that they're still kind of going through right now? Do you think, or?
I mean, it could be, but it could just be like a slow start. I think for like what you said, it could be the hangover. Because I don't think they have any like major injuries. I mean, Acuna's back. I don't think they have any injuries, so maybe it's just as simple as a slow start.
Acuna is good and favorable of anything that could happen. I know Adam Duvall's still doing well there. I was one, Darno, who's been catching, is doing well. So I don't know. We'll see what comes. It's still early. see
Memorial Day.
That's right. Okay. Take us on, brother. What else we got?
All right. 2 more divisions to go. The NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers lead 16-8. St. Louis Cardinals just behind them, 2.5 back at 13-10. A surprising team I did not know was this close to 500. But the Pittsburgh Pirates are 9-13, 6 games back. The Cubs just behind them at 6.5 back at 9-14. And then there's I don't know if they're considered a major league team at this point, but the Reds are there at 3-20, 12.5 back.
A team that had the rookie of the year, who I think's on the injured list now. And I don't think that's an excuse. Okay. Let me say that right now. They're 1-9 for the last 10 games. You only got 3 games out of 23 that you've won. I'm sorry. Maybe you should move. Oh no, somebody already said that. Oh gosh,
that's been suggested.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a PR problem in a couple of ways. One, because they just stink, and 2, because the president was saying, "Well, what do you want us to do? We're going to move here for you. Is that going to be good?" Anyway. But the Brewers, looking at how they have done, they won 8 out of the last 10. Then this week too, they've got the player of the week, Willie Adames, man. He was cooking it, brother. Let's see, one game, I think he had 7 RBIs this week. That's huge.
Yeah, and it helps when he doesn't have the trop lights messing with his eyes, I guess. But I kind of wish that he did that here.
Oh, yeah, it would have been nice. I'm so happy for Willie. I really, really am. I'm almost ready to become a Brewers fan, because I know there's 2 or 3 guys from the Rays on there, but he's a great player. So I'm hope they continue to do well in that division.
Yeah, well, hold your head high, Reds fans. The Bengals open training camp in just over 2.5 months. So there's that. With that being said, I'll move on to the NL West to close out this segment.
Okay.
We have basically a 4-team race at this point. For first place, the Dodgers are 15-7. They lead the division. No surprise there. Just behind them, the San Diego Padres at 15-8, a half game back. The Giants 14-9, a half a game back from the lead. Then the Colorado Rockies 2.5 games back at 13-10. And then the Diamondbacks 12-13, 4.5 back. So even though they're below 500, the Diamondbacks are still in striking range.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, if you go across all 6 divisions, they've got the most wins. So they're performing better at the bottom than any of the other remaining 5 divisions. So that's says a lot. I mean, the NL West has always been strong, but this year, my gosh, the Dodgers aren't running away with it with 15-7 when you got a guy right, but a team right behind you is 15-8. It's and like you said, Giants right behind that with 14-9. This is just an outstanding division.
Yeah, and I don't expect the Diamondbacks to stick around long term. The Rockies, I think maybe they could stick around, but they might, kind of teeter off at the end a little bit. I would love for a 3-team race, come August and September. Could you imagine what we could talk about?
Mark it down, boys and girls. Brandon's saying it right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing that too. That's going to be interesting, my friend. Oh, by the way, as long as we're talking about the Dodgers, I don't know. They celebrated a little bit the other day with football. They brought the Lombardi Super Bowl trophy out there onto the field, and some of them are out there and celebrating that and celebrating former a past World Series win with the Dodgers and saying, "Hey, look, we're champions. What do I say? The Champion City, whatever it was. I can't remember.
City of Champions.
The City of Champions. Thank you. It's like, give me a freaking break. Yeah, we got 3. We've got 3. And I know you and I were talking earlier. What did you say about that?
That they just want to be us so bad. I mean, how long did it take them to win the 3 trophies? What, like 15, 16 months?
They said 16 months was one of the things I was hearing out there. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cute. We won 3 in 10 months.
I love it, brother. Absolutely love it. But wow, well, there's a lot going on out there, and you see things like the Yankees doing so strong, and some of the others, and then you see what's happening with Cincinnati. And fans, we wish you all the best with whoever your team is out there, but there's obviously some that are really struggling. But once again, it's early. Okay, I've heard it too many times. But I mean, you got to have injuries. We talk about that can affect the game, and talent overall. But then something else can affect the game, and that's the ball.
Yes, it's a rather important aspect of the game, the ball, isn't it?
I would imagine without a ball, there's no game. Just people swinging wood at nothing.
Yeah, so last week we kind of covered how humidors could be affecting the balls. But after that show released, another thing popped up, and that got me thinking, there's another thing that could be affecting the balls as well, and other people have thought of that as well, some credible people as well, Nightingale and Olney. So I'm not the only one thinking of it. And just give you a little lesson, in 2021, it was confirmed that MLB used 2 different types of balls, the dead and the juiced, due to what they called COVID-related production issues. And they said MLBPA agreed to that, but about 10 PA refs were asked about it, and all of them that answered all said no, they had no idea that they were making those changes. And it came out this year that all balls were supposed to change to conform to the 2021 ball requirements. So they were supposed to have the same ball all across the league. And last week we said the offensive production is at its worst since the turn of the century, even before the steroid era. The batting average in April was .231, the lowest ever average for 1 month into the season. Teams are slugging .366, the lowest since 1976. And OPS was .675, the lowest since 1968. and teams are averaging about 3.94 runs a game, the lowest since 1972. And teams are averaging just 0.089 homers a game, which is the second lowest output since 1993, before the steroid era. And Bleacher Report reported that the average barrel distances has decreased from 386 feet to 378 feet 1 month into 22.
Is that significance enough to actually even remark about? I mean, we're talking about what, we're talking about 8 feet. Is that significant? Well, I guess if you want a home run, it's significant again. Yeah,
yeah, I think it is, because I mean, balls are usually in like the same little range, and we have sometimes where 380 feet at some parks is a homer, and then 380 feet at others isn't. So I think that is worth noting. And kind of like you, there are differing opinions on this subject. Max Scherzer came out and said, "Don't we say that every year at this time?" And then the bats heat up. It's still early. And there's that saying again. And is it the humidor effect like we talked about last week, with now every team storing baseballs in a humidor instead of just Colorado and Arizona?
yeah.
Possibly. Also, last week we discussed, is it hitters swinging for the fences no matter the count or the situation? Possibly. And Buster Olney brought up a good point. Could it be the cold weather, and that when it gets warmer out, the numbers could rise? That's a fair point, because I mean, it is proven that the warmer the temperature, the further that the ball flies. So all pretty good points there. And then Dave Roberts, quote, "I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it just seems like something's different. There's been a handful that I felt off the bat, the sound, the trajectory, the velocity, that I thought would be home runs that didn't get out of the ballpark."
No, well, that doesn't seem to be hurting him though, or the Dodgers right now, does it?
No, they're in first place. I'm sure they're just fine with the way it is right now. And MLB came out and said that they're supposed to use one type of ball, and that is based off of the 2021 rules. But players are convinced that there are two different baseballs used in the games this year, just like there was last year. Ian Kennedy of the Diamondbacks told USA Today, "Honestly, I can tell you right now there are two different baseballs still. I'm not an idiot. I've been in baseball my whole life. At the beginning of the year, we were using just one ball. It took the mud better. It was more porous, a rougher feel. The other one is more noticeably different because it's so smooth. I noticed when they started mixing in the older ones last year. We later found out that they were mixing in the older ones because they had a surplus. Right after the hitters were complaining the ball's not flying as far, I'm like, why don't we do this at the beginning of the year? Why are we trying to grab two different baseballs every single time?" Seth Lugo of the Mets said, quote, "The carry on the ball is down. They're not getting home runs, but we're not getting swings and misses. It kind of evens out." Which, I mean, that could be a good point, but that's kind of not what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
They were supposed to have just the one type, which I don't know.
Maybe MLB will own up to something later this year, but it does seem questionable. Obviously those other things do matter, but no, brother, we'll see.
And then here's a credible source, James McCann, who is a catcher. He said that he used to kind of make fun of pitchers who thought that they would use two different balls and thought it was just them complaining. But he said that even now he notices a difference when the umpire hands him a ball because the seams are either raised or lowered. So what I don't get is, really, why do they have two different balls? If they would just come out and said it, I think, people would understand, but they're kind of trying to hide it and, the inconsistency of it. I think that's what bothers people most, because, I mean, nobody, I don't think, really wants, nothing but homers, but they also don't want nothing but strikeouts. They kind of want the balance of everything.
Right.
And, we kind of got that, but the only problem is that the ball is inconsistent, and you kind of want to know what you're getting with the ball, because your grip will change depending on how the seams are. And we got balls that would have no business going out end up being bombs, and then some that sound like they should be moonshots off the bat end up dying out on the warning track. So, I mean, it's still early. We don't know what it could be like when the weather heats up. Could it all just go away, or could it just be early in the season? Everybody's still, getting their feet wet because of the shorter spring training. So I think that this is something worth monitoring if it continues.
Wow, that's pretty wild about the balls, like I said, and what's happening. So I don't know. I think we'll find out. Like we said earlier, if as we discover more, we'll share with you. We've been fortunate to talk about a lot of great news going on as far as like with Dusty this week and getting the 2,000 wins. But there's also some news that came out that a lot of people been waiting for. It's a lot of people have been waiting for the other shoe to drop, so to speak. And we haven't talked about it a lot because God knows I don't want to give this individual really any more attention than they need. And that is Trevor Bauer. And he is no longer on administrative leave. MLB has now decided to come down and say, guess what? We've looked over everything and coming on about the complaint about you, and we're going to suspend your butt. We're going to suspend you, man. 324 games. Boop, you're gone. 324 games. And yes, that is the equivalent of 2 years of baseball. So that doesn't begin when they first put him on administrative leave. That begins like right now. So it would be at least 2 seasons before he's even able to set foot onto a mound, if anybody will have him then.
And that'd be almost 3 years too, because he's been out almost a year just on leave. And that combined with being suspended for the 2 years, that's basically 3 years of baseball that he's missed. So that could be pretty much all for Trevor Bauer in the majors.
Yeah, and you've got to wonder about this because last year, while he was on administrative leave, he's getting paid. He's getting paid, every week or what he gets paid during the season like any other player. So all that money was still going to his pocket. Now, the other part of that is it didn't seem like he had a lot of friends on the Dodgers. He has a strong personality. I think a lot of people said, whatever he may or may not have done, guilty or not guilty, is obvious. And he says that he did certain activities as far as quote, rough sex, unquote, and basically hurt women. But they said that it's okay. And it ain't. You know what? I don't care who agrees to what. Anybody should never have to receive that kind of abuse. And you can look up all the details if you want to on it. But I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. And this kind of behavior should never, ever be this kind of behavior should be brought out. It should be paid attention to and say, guess what? A penalty should be inflicted upon him. His case never went to court because they decided not to prosecute. I don't know if there was some settlement or anything else, but I think the DA felt like they didn't have enough information to continue with prosecution. But the MLB is not the same as a civil court. They are an professional organization who can come up with a conclusion of their own with the evidence in front of them. And there's information supposedly from other people who have experienced abusive behavior from Bauer as well. So I don't know all the specifics, and I don't pretend to. But the one thing, just even what he said he's done is enough for me to say, and I'm sure there's not a whole lot of owners that say, well, we would pick him up if you decide to get rid of him. No, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and just because, the case was thrown out or adjudicated, I don't remember the legal terms or really know what they mean, but that's really in every sport where you don't have to be charged with it. The leagues can still suspend you. I mean, look at this. The case was thrown out and he's still suspended for 2 seasons. And in the NFL, how often do we see somebody accused of assault and then they get, the case is thrown out or they settle out of court, but a guy's still suspended for 4 or 6 games. And they just put out the blanket statement that it was conduct detrimental to the league. And I mean, they can do that. That's their own league. They're a private business, but that's just how it works. You don't have to be charged to get suspended. Just because if you have your name brought up, that's detrimental to the league, you can be gone for a certain amount of time.
What's interesting too is the Players Association, whether they like Bauer or not, whether they think he's a good person or whatever, they still have to represent him. He is a member of their union. So they're going to have to, face up with his appeal. They're going to have to be there and say, we're going to give him representation. It's an ugly situation when you think of what he's done and the people he's impacted, the people who he's impacted.
Yeah, it's just an all around bad situation, which is one of the reasons we didn't want to cover it.
Here's the thing, Brandon. I mean, I don't know. We're going to see. I'm looking back here even from 2021. Sam Dyson, pitcher with the Minnesota Twins. He's suspended for 162 games. And I'm not going to give you any details, but it was for domestic violence. I'm not going to go down to each one of these. The most, when you look at suspension across MLB, you see a lot of guys who have been suspended for 80 games. And that's usually because PEDs, performance enhancement drugs. But there are some with domestic violence. And again, there may be different degrees, there may be different things going on with it. And that may be some variance on the penalty. Starling Castro with second baseman for Washington. He was suspended for 30 games and he almost had to pay $1 million for a fine too, $967,000. Ozuna, again, somebody with domestic violence. He was suspended for only 20 games, but he also had a fine of $1,720,000. Wow. So it's interesting. Again, MLB is not going to explain all the inner workings on some of this, but we'll see what happens.
I don't think we'll ever get like a straight answer of, this, and this is why we're suspending him for this long. It might just be, like I said, where it's just a bland PR statement of conduct detrimental to the league, something like that.
I think that's almost like a canned response to everything that they usually do put out there. Conduct detrimental to the league. Well, talk about conduct detrimental to people in their lives. And that's what really happens. And that brings up another question. The money that they're fined, any player for anything, where does that money go? I mean, does that go to the victim? With Ozuna, we're talking about $1.7 million. Huge. Where does that go? Some preliminary work done by some friends show that there's actually an organization that I think the fines go to, and that's the Baseball Assistance Team. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
It was brand spanking new to me too. So Baseball Assistance Team. And a lot of what they do is, I believe, helping players who have extreme circumstances or who are no longer in the game but have difficulties in their life. And, I think people can apply for a grant with this organization to get some aid. I would like to do a little more homework because I would like to see if any of the money that comes in from some of these domestic issues, if any of that's given to the victims or the victims' families. Again, I have neither the knowledge or the capacity to know or give guidance to what should be done with this. But I am glad to hear there's something like the Baseball Assistance Team out there helping people. As long as we're talking about helping people, I noticed that the Rays are wearing the little green ribbon on their uniforms this month. That's a representation of honoring a friend who passed, a friend who had some mental issues, and whose family has come up and has done a lot to help people with those type of issues since then. It's a challenge. It's May, and it's actually National Mental Health Awareness Month. It's something I think that we all need to think about. In the past, I've recommended people look at where they can contribute. Even like monetarily. What is it? NAMI, NAMI. The Rays with their green ribbons are honoring relief pitcher Gene Ramirez. And he had great difficulties. Honor who he is and the challenges a lot of people have. I know the National Alliance on Mental Illness is, you can donate there. And maybe that's a way you can help. It's recognizing there's a lot of folks out there who are still experiencing trouble with this. And they're trying to find a way to make it stigma-free so that people can openly speak about it and seek aid. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that is out there, Brandon.
Yeah, times have gotten better. There's not as big of the stigma around it. And, we've seen it with, bigger names coming out and saying that they have mental health issues. That's really helped. And a whole bunch of foundations, people donating money, like you've been saying, or just being people that you could come and talk to. I know that's meant a lot and helped a lot of people as well. So it's something that's gotten better with time.
Well, let's hope it continues to as well. One last little bit I want to leave you guys with in a whole other direction, and that is everyone's favorite umpire, Mr. Joe West, who retired last year after umpiring over 5,460 games. Wow. He's got his own podcast, man. His first one out last week is was it 1 hour and about 40 minutes long. It's like, geez, and crackers. But he had some good stories to tell. You know, it's kind of an introductory episode. And I don't know, who would you like to see as guests on his show?
Ooh, I think it was Madison Bumgarner that they had a staring contest with at one point.
Ooh, yeah.
In the middle of the game. That'd be something I'd like to see.
Yeah, that would be huge. He actually talks about that on the show. But I'd like to see Angel Hernandez, have him on there and bring CC Sabathia and John Boy. Put them all as 3 guys who could be on a panel with Joe for one show. Oh, he'd have his Joe West and his greatest hits. So we're not just talking about country Joe playing his music. I hopefully he's going to be playing some music on the show. So I'm looking forward to that too.
He did his own intro song.
That's it. I think he kind of does, but here's a little nugget for you. How many ejections do you think he's given over his career?
Oh, that's a long career.
Yeah.
I'll go like 280.
Wow. You're I wouldn't say necessarily generous. I think he said he gave 196, but I would have guessed around where you were. I would have been, he said, maybe 300 plus. And he and the host were talking back and forth. He said, well, what manager out there you think's been ejected the most? He said, Bobby Valentine. And I said, ooh. He said, Bobby's been kicked out of about 15 games. If you want to know more about Bobby, we also did an interview a week or so ago. Check that out. But Joe West, and you can find him on Twitter at JoeWest5460. That's what they're using for the podcast. And I look forward to seeing that. Brandon, who would you like to have as somebody else out there? Who do you think should be doing a podcast, live or retired, that should be out there in baseball?
Ooh, that'd be a good one. I'd love to hear Ken Griffey Jr. Because you know how big he was. I think that'd be a really good one. Who else?
I want to hear. I want to hear the commissioner's report. I want the commissioner to have a podcast where he gives a report every week. Not only what's happened in baseball, but how he feels about the game.
How about Johnny Gomes? Ooh. He was always a bit of a wild guy.
I like that. Keep it. That's a lot more entertaining than what I was coming up with. Okay. Well, we're staying busy enough with baseball biz as it is, and instead of worrying about anybody else's. So, oh man, any other goodies you want to bring into the arena?
No, Mark. I think we got it all covered for this week.
All right, Brandon. Okay, yeah, Brandon. Well, let's go ahead and take us on out of here, buddy.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening once again. We hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, spread the word about the show. And you can follow us on Twitter. Mark is at BaseballBiz. And I am the BaseballBiz.
Thank you.
And I am at Sports Blitz Pod on Twitter. I'll be doing a lot more since the Stanley Cup playoffs are on. That's always exciting. So we'll be doing a bunch of that. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Brandon, once again, my friend. And also thank you to Tommy and Jimmy for joining us this week. And special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music rocking forward.